Hey, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. To get started landing clients as a freelance copywriter, there is one thing you're probably going to need, and that is a killer copywriting portfolio. Portfolios can be really intimidating, especially if you are new to the game. It's kind of a catch-22. You need a portfolio to land clients, but you also need clients to have something to put in your portfolio. So what do? In this video, I'm going to go over two things. The first thing we're going to talk about is how you can build your copywriter portfolio even if you've never had a paying client. And secondly, I'm going to show you a few examples of really good portfolios from other writers, and we'll talk about why they're so effective. I think this whole time I haven't been looking at the camera, so sorry. All right, let's dive in. So first, let's talk about how you can build your copywriter portfolio even if you don't have any experience yet. If that's the case for you, first, don't panic. I can tell you, as someone who has sent my portfolio as a writer and also hired a lot of other writers, clients aren't so concerned with where has this work been published. They just want to know that you know how to write. That's it. So really, it doesn't matter where these samples come from. Now, to get very quick copywriting samples, there are a couple of things you could do. I hate even bringing this up because I personally don't recommend it. Some people will tell you to go work a few jobs for free just to get quick samples. I don't want anyone working for free, even if you're totally new to the game. Regardless, I'll leave that up to you. If you do, also ask that client for a testimonial, okay? Tell them you want to use it, use the sample in your portfolio, and tell them you will also ask for a testimonial. And in exchange for those two things, you will do a small project for them for free. I just don't like this approach. What I recommend instead is that you just make your samples up, okay? You really only need 3 to 5 copywriting samples to get your portfolio going. You can make these up from scratch, even if they're completely fictitious companies. Clients don't care. They just want to see your writing. Now, the types of samples that you're going to create will depend on the specific copywriting services that you're planning on offering. So you need to narrow that down first. But once you do, you can come up with 3 to 5 samples, and that's your portfolio. It really can be that simple. Let's talk a little bit more about what your copywriter portfolio should look like. Again, this is largely going to depend on what specific types of copywriting you're offering, but one thing to keep in mind no matter what is that you want your portfolio to display the finished product, what the finished piece looks like, even if you're just making this up. Let's run through an example together. Let's say that for now you want to focus on writing product descriptions for brands, which is a type of copywriting. So this is what your portfolio is going to highlight. As opposed to just copying and pasting in the text that you wrote, try using a screenshot of the entire product description, what it looked like at completion. You want to bring your portfolio to life and really make it pop. If this was something published online, if it was a job you actually did, then you should also include the link to that page so that they can go see it live. If you made it up, don't worry, it's okay. If you're making these samples up, and again, we'll use the example of a product description, you can use a free tool like Canva to create a very simple mock-up of what that product description would look like if it were real. Let's dive into this a little bit more and talk about some other things that your copywriter portfolio should include. If you really want to stand out, which you should, here are a few more ideas. For each sample, you want to include details like the objective of that project, any challenges that you ran into, and what your solutions were for those challenges. This gives your potential clients kind of the bigger picture of the project, the full scope. It gives them more context, which is always helpful. Think of it as sharing the highlights of the project. Also, if this was work that you did for other clients and not just samples that you made up, it doesn't matter if you did it for free or if it was paid work, add a testimonial. I mentioned testimonials earlier. You should always be asking for them. The reason testimonials are so powerful is because we can talk about how awesome we are until we're blue in the face. But when you get someone else to vouch for you, when you get them to talk about how amazing you are, it carries so much more weight. Now, how do you publish your portfolio online? You've got a few options here. For starters, you don't have to have a website. Should a website be on your radar? Should you have one eventually? Yes. But if the mere thought of trying to build a website just so you can get your portfolio out there gives you the anxiety sweats, it's okay. You can use something like Google Drive to store your samples. And then when you're communicating with potential clients, you will just send them the link to that Drive document. Or once again, you can use Canva, have all of your samples in there, and download it as a PDF. When you're communicating with a lead, send them the PDF of your work. If you do want to build a website, thankfully these days there are plenty of very cheap and sometimes even free options that allow you to get a website up fairly quickly and easily. I'm talking about things like Wix or Squarespace, WordPress. You don't have to be tech savvy for this, okay? And I really want to emphasize this because a lot of my students struggle with this part. Don't make this any harder than it needs to be. What I recommend you do is set a deadline for yourself, okay? Something that's gonna give you enough time to do this and make it look nice, but not enough for you to drag your feet. So let's say you give yourself a week to get your website up and commit to that deadline, and that's it. And whatever it looks like at the end of that week, you're done. Publish your site live and move on for now. If you're building a site, you kind of have two options here. You can choose a template that makes it so that the website is just your portfolio. Or you can choose a template where you have a website for a business and the portfolio will just be one part of that website. I suggest you go with that option. Here's why. If you're a freelance copywriter, you're a business owner. So your website is going to need additional pages like an about page, a contact page, a blog, maybe a page that goes into more detail on your services, and your portfolio. These days, using some of those platforms that I mentioned, like Wix and WordPress, they have tons of templates available that are designed specifically for artistic freelancers like copywriters. So they're built to highlight your portfolio, but they still include those other elements that I mentioned. Just don't have a one-page site that's nothing but a portfolio, okay? You want to get those other things in there too. All right, so we're going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you my screen, and we are going to look at 3 portfolios from other writers that really caught my eye, and we'll go through them together and talk about what makes them so great. The first example I want to show you is from freelance writer Elna Kane. If we click on portfolio here, what we see at the top is a quick introduction so that visitors kind of have a better idea of what they're looking at here, and then she keeps it super simple. We've got here a running list with a thumbnail, the title of her sample, and then the URL reflecting that sample. And by clicking on any of these, it automatically takes you to that published piece. And remember, you can still have a variation of this that you use for your own sites if you've happened to make up your samples. In that case, this would just link to either another page on your website, or if you have them in a Google Drive, you can link them to that. The reason this portfolio works so well is because it's so simple and easy to navigate. I don't know if this is what she was going for, but when I see a portfolio like this, as another writer, I think this is awesome because she's not, bending over backwards trying to wow people with anything. She is simply putting her samples out there and saying, here's what you need to see. And I think that works really well. The second example I want to give you is from Anders J. Svensson. Hopefully I'm saying that right. We're going to go to his portfolio. This is another great example. So here's what his looks like. Of course, it's a lot more image heavy. And if you click on any of these, it will take you to another page still on his website where you can see kind of like the completed project that he participated in. Like Elna, he's got an introduction to every project so that you have a little more context. And what I absolutely love about this portfolio is that he uses this bit of space to further show off his flair and his personality and what kind of writer he is. I'm not going to read this to you right now, but if you go to his site, you'll see here that, on the example of Nova Cannabis, he's so funny, and it makes sense because this specific project really called for him to be creative and witty and clever with his words. You've never seen stores this well lit cannabis. So it's just a really good opportunity for him to show off his personality and how good of a writer he is. So I was a huge fan of this one. And the third example I wanted to give you is from Christine Parizo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And where was her portfolio hiding? Here. Go here. Now this is really cool because since Christine produces different types of written work, meaning white papers, case studies, and so on, she broke her samples up like that, and unlike Anders, no images. But it works in this case because if someone's considering hiring her, all they have to do is go to this page, they can see broken down what types of services she can provide, and then they can view the samples corresponding to that specific section. This really makes sense for the types of services that she's providing. We wouldn't want to compare it to a portfolio from a writer like Anders because it's a completely different type of writing. Okay, so she, as an example, she can provide white papers and case studies, which are very text-heavy, long-form pieces of content. So if that's the type of work she's getting, it wouldn't make sense for her to have a portfolio that looks like Anders. This makes perfect sense for her, and very importantly, in this little intro here, she makes it super easy to contact her by having a CTA right here. People can click on this if they want to get in touch with her. These are just 3 examples, 3 of many. You are a copywriter, okay? It's in your blood to get creative. You want a portfolio that absolutely shows off your skills as a writer and a professional, but you also want something that shows off your personality. Don't be afraid to have fun with it like Anders did, and don't be afraid to keep it simple like Christine did. If you want to list your samples almost like blog posts, just like Elna did, you can do that too. All that matters is that it accomplishes one goal. It shows potential clients how amazing you are at copywriting. If it accomplishes that, it doesn't matter how you did it, okay? I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in a comment. I always try to respond, and please give this video a thumbs up before you head out. That will tell YouTube that you find my content valuable. All right, thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next video.